Good evening. 7 o'clock. It's Monday evening, March 16th, and this session of the Wayne-Westland Community Schools Board of Education is now in session. We have Mr. Jarden from, was it Taft Galloway? And you brought a couple of students, have you, to help us with our Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe it's Sarah and Kayla? Kyla. Perhaps we should have the pledge now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 228.15, excuse me, that is inappropriate.
Yes. And I would have
Ms.
stopped
Hines, do you have a presentation for us?
you. Not yet.
Oh, not yet.
While she's walking there, I will read this up. I can tell. You're going to get the elbow here in a minute. Let's start with Sarah. Sarah is a first grade student at Taft Galloway Elementary School. She's 6 years old and is a fabulous leader in Mrs. Chiltero class. She lives with her mom, dad, and 2 sisters. Her favorite subject in school is math, and she loves the color blue and orange. Outside of school, she enjoys playing Minecraft and having sleepovers with her cousins. She would eat waffles all the time if she could. The habit she loves most is synergize, because she loves to help people. When she gets older, her goal is to make a basketball team. And our other pledge person is Kyla, is Sarah's older sister. She is 9 years old and is also a fabulous leader in Mrs. Bartley's class. She proudly serves on Taft Galloway's Service and Safety Squad and applied to be an MC at our upcoming Leadership Day. The subject she finds most interesting at school is science and absolutely loves her father's jerk chicken. When she's not in school, she enjoys cleaning her home and playing basketball for the Taft Tigers. The habit that she loves most is putting first things first. She always completes her homework first before she plays because she loves being organized.
Thank you. I would like to present this award to Sarah Gabriel for participating in the flag ceremony during the regular meeting for the Board of Education on behalf of the Wayne-Westland Community Schools. So congratulations, Sarah. Here you go. And I would like to present the second award to Kyla Gabriel for participating in the flag ceremony during the regular meeting for the Board of Education on behalf of the Wayne-Westland Community Schools. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Ms. Hines. Item 228.15, roll call. Mrs. Medell?
Mrs. Madison.
Present.
Mrs. Hines.
Present.
Dr. Weaver.
Present.
Mrs. Walker is excused. Mr. Griffin?
Present.
I am here, and Mr. Buckaloo.
I am here. The record show we have 6 present and 1 excused. Item 229.15, recognition presentations. Dr. Harmel.
Yes, thank you very much. We're going to have a special presentation tonight by some of our students from John Glenn High School, and in a moment I'll introduce Principal Dave Ingham to get that started. But I wanted to share that across our schools throughout the school year, many of our schools have initiatives to support with anti-bullying. For example, Wayne Memorial High School has participated in the National Bullying Awareness activities throughout the month of October. This March, they're hosting the author of the book called End It Now, and this book is an autobiography from a man who was a victim of bullying. The students read the book in some of their English Language Arts 10 classes, and now they get the chance to meet the author. Additionally, at a number of our schools, both Wayne Memorial and John Glenn, Dr. Michael Fallon visits each year, and he works with our freshmen to understand anti-bullying as a strong message and tolerance. And tonight, we're going to actually have our students from John Glenn High School who came in to meet with me to share the work they were doing, and they're going to share tonight, but I'll start by introducing Principal David Ingham.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Harmala. Thank you for this opportunity. Tonight we do have a special treat for you, I think, tonight. We have a unique organization here at John Glenn, and I'm going to introduce 2 of our staff members to introduce 3 of our young men that are in this organization. It's called Male African American Scholars. I want to invite up Louis Shabilsky, who is our school psychologist, and also Melissa Calabrese, who runs our Bright Futures program at John Glenn. They're going to introduce our students tonight and talk to you about a unique student-led program that these young men did in collaboration with many other organizations at John Glenn this past year. I also want to say hello to Dr. Lynn Malinoff, who is here tonight as a guest, who has been instrumental in bringing Bright Futures to our high school.
Thanks, Dave. I want to thank Mr. Ingham for allowing us to do some innovative type programs over at John Glenn. He's been very, very supportive and very trusting with our leadership. I'm always excited and impressed when students have some interest in the greater good of the culture of the school. I was approached by the students who I'm going to introduce in a few minutes about the idea of taking better care of the students, taking care of all the students in the building, not just the students who were well recognized or well popular, but all the students. And this is how this anti-bullying program kind of developed. I want to introduce Melissa Calabrese first, who is the director of Bright Futures, who is a major mover in terms of getting the program off the ground and mentoring these guys. These are all seniors at John Glenn High School, all outstanding students. Xavier Edwards, Kamari Johnson, Darnell Zachary, and they're going to explain the program to you. Thanks.
Ubuntu. This is a concept that was adopted in Africa with the meaning, I am because of you. As in everything one does affects everyone around them, sometimes without us even knowing. This philosophy may be mainly shared in Africa, but is true everywhere around the globe. The way one acts around his or her peers puts an imprint on the minds of others, especially our youth. If a group is laughing at a girl, you may laugh along to gain acceptance. Seeing that she has no negative reactions to your laughter, you may assume nothing is wrong with her. Little do you know that's the same girl who cries herself to sleep every night wondering what is wrong with her. The answer is nothing. There's something wrong with us. Bullying is a recurring event that continues to affect the everyday lives of people of all ages. From the child who gets their toy taken from them in daycare, to a suicidal teen alone in the hallway because he feels he has nothing in common with any social group. And even the old man who sits at the bar alone due to his low self-esteem from constantly getting his heart broken, disabling him from finding a spouse. We see and maybe look past these events every day in society, but today we take action. At John Glenn, we've noticed numerous cases of bullying and devised a plan. Today we are here to share with you that plan and how we've changed our school community. Now, Kamari.
Thank you, Darnell. Before Xavier tells you what we've done, I'd like to share with you some disturbing facts about bullying and then read you a poem I've written. 1 in 7 students in grades K through 12 is either a bully or a bullying victim. 1 out of every 10 students who drop out of school does so because of repeated bullying. 56% of students have personally witnessed bullying in some type of way. And now an original poem I've written titled, Where Are You, Friend? Fat, ugly, worthless, stupid. These are the words you hear. Did you know that you are their biggest fear? Day by day they torment you. It takes so long for your heart to mend. All you've ever asked for is one true friend, but they make you want your life to end. Every day you wake up with regret. All you want to do is forget. It's not just the hitting and the punching, it's the words they say, the hurtful things they post on the internet. They hurt so much you want to fade away. This is when enough is enough. You're sick of playing strong, sick of playing tough. You put on a fake smile and pretend you're okay. You firmly believe you can make it all the way. But all that pretending and belief is running out. This is it. You've made plans to end all the pain and loneliness after school, when you get home. This is really it. Until someone leaves the crowd and lends you a hand. You learn it's time to take a stand. Your smile is no longer fake. Now you have no reason to ache. All you've wanted to know is that someone cares. You finally see all you've ever wanted was a friend. Someone to stand by you when the bullying came again. Now, Xavier.
Last year, after taking notice of the incidents of bullying at John Glenn, we, along with the other members of the Male African American Scholars Program, knew that change was necessary. The only way to make a serious impact was to create an environment where both the teachers and the students felt unified with one another. With the help of Mr. Paulson's graphic design class, we were able to sell shirts that gave off the powerful impression that bullying ends with me. Every Friday in May, the hallways of Glenn were covered with students and staff proudly displaying their feelings against bullying. We knew our work wasn't done with the shirts, though. We wanted this movement to have a lasting effect on both the school and the students. This past October, with the help of the varsity football team and our Bright Futures program, we were able to reach a far larger number of students than the previous year. We provided daily announcements that discussed eye-opening facts regarding bullying. We also did classroom presentations for underclassmen that honestly weren't even aware that some of their actions could be considered bullying. Students were also given the opportunity to sign a banner that acted as a pledge stating that bullying actually does end with them. With the realization that many students would have a lot to say about bullying, we created a writing contest for them. Many students took advantage of this opportunity and submitted their original piece of poetry or prose. 3 winners were chosen, and their works were published in our school newspaper. Although the 3 of us graduate this spring, this movement will last far longer than that. In December, Stevenson's Bright Future program invited us over to assist them with a group of middle school students having trouble with bullying. After a few meetings, these kids embraced one another and were even motivated to start their own anti-bullying club. Our movement also kickstarted another anti-bullying club in Glenn, facilitated by Mrs. Mathis. Our efforts have created an environment in Glenn that is more welcoming and inclusive now than ever before. Our message: let's stop bullying. Treat others with kindness and be the one who stands up for others. Now I would just like to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to present this to you. And most of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Shabilsky and Melissa and Ms. Calabrese as well, just for putting their time and effort into this. They really did put a large effort into this. So we all appreciate that. Thank you. do have some T-shirts the T-shirts that we are wearing, and some newspaper articles that contain the poetry and the writings that the student put in our school newspaper, and we're going to give this to each of the members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a triple extra large in there for me?
We had all sizes at one point.
Yeah, the big mama size.
Thank you.
Well, they put our names on them.
Nice, very nice.
Thank you, and
Thank
thank
you,
you
sir.
for making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you for all
Thank
what
you.
you've done.
Thank you for making a difference.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Don't forget, we have something to get for you, so stand here.
You should probably leave one
Thank
for
you
her,
very
and the
much.
president can give it to the president, he'll take care of it for her. For the
Mrs. Walker.
Thank you.
Mrs. Walker.
Well, then we'll get it later.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for making a difference.
Oh, you're talking about the newspaper?
Yeah.
I will wear this proudly, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, please don't go. Please don't go. Dr. Weaver has a presentation for you.
Guys, on behalf of the Board of Education, we want to tell you and the support staff that you're doing the Lord's work, and this is a fantastic thing. You threw me back into time warp. When I was in 5th grade, I had a bunch of 10th graders that liked to make my life miserable. So it's not like it just started, but you're certainly bringing awareness to it, and we thank you for that. So on behalf of the Wayne-Westland Board of Education, recognizes your participation in the John Glenn Schools Bullying Prevention Program presentation and acknowledges your efforts at the Board of Education's regular meeting on March 16th. Xavier.
Thank you.
And Darnell. And Kamari. Thank you, gentlemen. Another big round of applause.
Want to make a comment? Wait.
Go ahead.
I was in the board office hallway waiting to see Dr. Hamarla when these gentlemen made their presentation that afternoon. And when they came out, I had an opportunity to meet each of you. You may not remember me, but you made such an impression. I haven't forgotten you. And I want to thank you for being a part of Wayne-Westland Community Schools. This is the good in our district, and you are the good in our district. And I want to thank you very, very much.
Can I say something?
You certainly may.
It took me being a parent to understand that my parents, when I was bullied, could not help me. And obviously, kids do not come with instruction manuals because every mother has been asking for one since the first child was ever born on this planet. It would make life so much easier being a parent if you guys came with instruction manuals. And that instruction manual would need to help parents deal with a child who comes home and doesn't want to go back to school because they're being bullied. As part of your program, could you consider for next year making a parent component to help parents when they are faced with this situation at home and have nothing better to say to their kid other than suck it up, sweetie, and go to school tomorrow? because that's hurtful for a kid who just doesn't want to get dressed and go the next day. So, you know, from one parent to the purveyors of knowledge, please consider putting this as part of your program also. I would have appreciated it myself. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Take just a minute or two, those of you who need to get home and get to your homework or whatever it is you need to do this evening. We'll let you slip on out of here, and then we'll get on with the business of the evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Look at the excellent posters. Those are unbelievable.
They are good. Item 230.15, citizen comments, agenda items only. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment on an agenda item this evening? I see none. We'll move on to item 231.15, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Motion by Dr. Weaver.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hines. Discussion?
I would like to mention there are 4 items on here of particular interest to me, and that are the donation of hats, scarves, and gloves to our students. It has given me a lot of encouragement to see that something that we needed in this district is being filled by our community, whether it's a church group or donations from individuals. Our students appreciate it. And not too long ago, I was driving from one event to another, and I got a chance to spot a kid with one of the hats that I made. And it made me feel good that knowing that they are indeed being used, they're keeping our kids nice and warm, and they're looking real good, too. So even though summer's coming and the yarn will stick to your hands, keep knitting. Better yet, if you've got some yarn to donate, I know the kids at the Bright Futures and the Champions program were learning how to knit. You know, I think it goes back to that story about the fish. Yeah, we're teaching our kids how to be fishermen. So if they're teaching them how to make their own scarves and hats and things like that for winter, they'll have them all the time. So we'll gladly take donations for that program too for the students. But I wanted to make mention that this has just taken off like wildfire, and it's great. Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? Roll call vote, Mrs. Patel?
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
I vote yes. Let the record show 6-0 vote. Item 232.15, review and approval, human resources items. Ms. Bull?
And friends.
Entourage.
Good evening. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to introduce tonight's presentation. We'll be focusing on the process that was used to review the district's teacher evaluation process and also provide a summary of the changes that were made. The purpose of an evaluation is to support professional growth and to improve our professional practice. In an effort to increase collaboration and provide teachers with a voice in the evaluation process, we created a Teacher Evaluation Review Committee. The charge of this committee was to identify those things going well, identify those things not going well, and prioritize the items that needed to be improved upon. One thing that was established prior to our meeting was the need to modify student growth criteria due to changes in mandated state testing, and that's the elimination of the MEP. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Julie Rogers, Don Harris, and Chris Bicey. I'm going to give you the remote.
Yeah, I think that means me.
guys are just going to stand behind me. Good,
Right.
good. Okay, working with all the different groups, the WWEA, WCOA, the WWBAA, we had different groups, teachers, administrators, that were picked to join the group. There were invitations sent out, and then, so it was a nice mix of administration and teachers and other individuals for the different groups. Nice big list of all the administrators and teachers that were took part in the sessions. There were several different meetings that we went to, and then some collective meetings after that where we were able to share lots of ideas.
Just want to say as well, the district has now been allowing us to be more collaborative. The teachers are more involved with some of the decisions that are happening in Wayne-Westland.
Oh, that's fine. I did also note, too, I was thinking the same thing. It was an unusual process to have the freedom as a teacher to be part of change. Usually the change is just put to us for what's going to happen or what we're going to be responsible for. And this way we're able to have some positive impact on the district as professionals. We went through our positive Delta change exercises where we identified what was working well, what wasn't working. It's always interesting. A lot of times you think it's teachers, administrators, different views. We all had the exact same views pretty much. Where the problems were where the successful pieces of the evaluation were, that things that needed to be changed. And we really did agree on those things that needed to be changed.
I think it stood out between administrators and teachers that we all had the same ideas. It took everyone a little off. Because we expected one side would have one perspective, we'd have another, but we all had the same. It was about student priority, student growth.
As Kelly had mentioned, because of the change in the MEP, we had to make some adjustment as far as what was counted. We also made some adjustment into the percentage of that testing on us. The main goal that really we were trying to do was to simplify it. It had become just a ginormous hassle. And it used to be much simpler to see where you could do better as a teacher, where your strengths were, where your weaknesses were, and instead it was just a very stressful time of trying to prove that you were doing the right things for your kids. So we wanted to simplify it and try to take some of that stress out of it. This is the old format that you can see up there. There is a ginormous, I like that word tonight, which doesn't really exist, but you have to give me a little bit of, I work with teenagers all day long. Sometimes my vocabulary gets a little lost. The old format was basically an Excel spreadsheet, lots of numbers, lots of calculations. You got a score for each individual section. On it, there's 14 sections plus a 15th section for the data points, all the testing, and your assessment pieces. The new format, you'll see a giant difference between the two where it's very clean, crisp, there it is. You know exactly what your rating is, whether you're effective, highly effective, for each section very clearly, rather than, if I go back to the old one, really a lot to look at and having to calculate the numbers out and kind of see where you fall. There's still a calculation method to the format. It's just behind the scenes, and this way you don't have a number. So we're not stressing about, did my number go up, did it go down, I didn't do better than last year, I wanted to get 2 points, why is the person next door to me have 1 point higher than I do? It just made it, here's your rating, you're effective, you're highly effective. Anything, gentlemen?
And with that, we go to...
We move on. Who's first? Mr. Hallman, there you go.
Thank you. So tonight I have the ginormous task. This is the phrase of the evening. No problem. Of talking about phase 2. One of the other things that the entire team discovered as we were going through phase 1 was that clearly when we had special education evaluations that we needed to have something a little bit different to address the unique needs of the classrooms that they all teach in, to kind of capture the brilliant students that we work with on a daily basis. And so what we did was we started phase 2 of the process, and it's exactly the same process that we did in phase 1 in terms of identifying teachers and administrators, sending out those same invitations, and having the 2 meetings selected. I'd like to take a moment to recognize some of those people, and here they are. We do have 2 representatives with us today to kind of have a conversation about the Phase 2 process, I'd like to introduce Sue Caudell and Nanette Fabre-Kozowski to talk a little bit more about it.
They handed me a clicker I probably can't use. Thank you, first of all, for letting me be part of this collaborative effort. It was awesome. This was a collaborative process to create an effective self-contained teacher evaluation tool that provides evidence of student growth within the special education population. The collaboration team was had representation from the cross-categorical, severely cognitive impaired, severely multiple impaired, behavior recovery, dual diagnosed, physical or other health impairment, self-contained teachers across all grade levels. This group also had the Special Education Administration, WWEA, and board office representation. The discussion was rich and powerful. The participants were able to express freely the aspects of the current evaluation tool that was not effective for the unique population of students we work with. The teachers wanted an evaluation tool to represent the data, objectives, and areas of functional academic skills, functional social skills, and functional essential living skills that are taught within our classes. Sue?
It was interesting because our group really wanted the evaluation to be appropriate and consistent across all the grade levels and across all the placements. They were very, very concerned about having, one set of criteria for the elementary and another set for the high school. And they really, really wanted everybody to be on the same page so that everybody knew what they were doing. They were very, very excited about the fact that we were going to have the flexibility of the choice of the kind of evidence that we can show for student growth within those three areas, such as functional academics, functional social skills, and I turned it off, so I don't know how to turn it back on. Anyways. Okay. Yeah, I broke it. And the functional essential living skills. So we kind of took a look at what do the teachers already do. So that's what we looked at. A lot of our teachers use charts for their for kids' behavior. They use behavior intervention plan data. They use pre and post tests that they created. They use pre and post tests that the curriculum created, or they use their common scores from RESA for the essential elements. So they wanted to use what they already had, so they're not creating something different. So they are already using their lessons that are in their classroom, the charts that are in their classroom, the rubrics that are in their classroom, so that when they sit down with Charlie or Diane or Jason, they can have that conversation. Okay, this is how I'm going to show how they're doing in their academics. This is my evidence. So it was nice to be able to have a real powerful conversation of, this is what goes on in my classroom, and this is what I do. Because every classroom is different, but every special ed self-contained classroom goes through those three things. And I thought that was exciting because I never had that opportunity. I had to get that 15 things and get a whole binder together and put all kinds of evidence in there. But to have that conversation with your administrator about what's going on in my classroom and what things I think I need to work on and what things he thinks I need to work on, but what are the kids doing? What are they learning? And those three areas were the biggest things. So I think in the end, we created a very powerful, effective teacher evaluation tool that I think everybody can agree that it applies to all the unique characteristics of the students that are in our self-contained classroom. So I was really excited.
There are actually 6 different evaluation formats that we're using with our WWEA members because of the different professional responsibilities and the diverse nature of the jobs that they do. The other 4 phases are listed here. We followed the same process with those groups where there was student growth as a component. We got together as a group to talk about what criteria we could use in light of our changes. And if there wasn't student criteria, as with the ancillary staff, then the forms were just simplified. And when I say just, I think this would be a good time to recognize Rebecca Peck, who is sitting in the corner. It was actually thanks to Rebecca's very hard work on a lot of snow days that all these forms got simplified. She's the one that did that for us, and I want to say thank you. I know that took a lot of your time. As far as next steps, our evaluation instruments are living documents. They're going to continue to have to adapt and evolve based on changes on the needs of the folks that are using them for professional growth and practice, as well as changes that are mandated by the state. So as we go through the future and we face these changes, we're going to continue to use the collaboration that we've identified as our current process because it was successful, and we're going to face those challenges together. Are there any questions that we can answer as a group?
You made the major undertaking.
No questions? Anyone have a comment?
Like
I have a comment, but I don't have any questions.
Let's hear your comment, sir.
All right, I just feel, as a member and a former teacher myself, now that's been 40 years ago or so, a long time, but I just think the collaboration process where you get input from all the staff is an appropriate one. They feel good about the process because they've had some input. So I'm glad to see that happening here, and I'm glad to see it happening in the future because I think that evaluation is a tough issue now with the state changing everything all the time and all the tests. So it's not an easy issue. I admire each one of you for doing the job, and I like the collaboration process very much. Thank you.
We do too.
Also, yeah, I want to echo that I thank you for sitting down, working together on this, and also want to say to Kelly that I think you've done a fantastic job working with all the groups and using your special type of whatever you do to bring everyone together. And I do appreciate that, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
And I would like to say, too, I really like your simplified format because it makes it easier to read. It's not as stressful when you have all these different spaces. So, you know, it's really clear, really pretty useful. So this is a really good job.
Thank you.
Well, I'm taking 3 words away from this. That might mean that I only have a short attention span, but the word powerful. This thing has a chance to work, doesn't it? And that's important. And there's no reason to do something if it isn't going to be successful, or at least have the chance to be successful. Professional. I believe that everyone in this school district is a professional. And by that I mean that they have a real care for the people that they work with, the job that they do. They know that it's an important thing to do. And collaborative, that's come up before. Collaborative is one of those educational terms that we throw around a lot, but all it means is that 2 people have sat down, put their heads together, and had a candid conversation. And what an amazing thing. Wouldn't it be wonderful if our friends in Lansing could achieve the same kind of candor? We wouldn't be in the boat that we're in now. I thank you very much. I'm really, I believe that this is going to make a difference in our district. And thank you very much.
Do we need a motion? No? Okay. No motion.
Item 233.15, review and approval, business, service, and finance items. Mr. Larson-Scheidler.
All right. Thank you, President Bucklew. First, I just have an update on the demolition of our buildings. Fencing is up around Blanchette, Kettering, Lincoln, and Madison. Asbestos removal is complete in all those buildings. RISA is meeting with the contractor that will be doing the demolition, starting on Blanchette. They're meeting Wednesday, so demolition should start shortly thereafter. And of course, we are holding on to Vandenberg until after June 30th because we have an agreement with the city of Wayne, and that building would start asbestos and demolition in September. That's really all I have on that. It's pretty short.
Okay, and we are not taking any action on your update. Item B.
Okay, thank you again. Purchase of school cafeteria tables. We solicited bids and received bids for tables at Adams Upper Elementary, Marshall Upper Elementary, Franklin, and Stevenson Middle School. We received 4 bids. We actually selected the second lowest bid. The bids range from about $160,000 to $204,000. Again, we selected the second lowest bid. It's the same tables that we have at the high schools, so it's we have some common tables, so we can always move tables around. And the lowest bid, which was $5,000 less, did not meet the specs.
Okay. We have a recommendation. Would somebody like to make the motion?
Move approval.
Support.
Okay, moved by Dr. Weaver and seconded by Mrs. Madison. Is discussion, please? Any discussion? Ms. Madell, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
I vote yes. Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes. It's a 6-0 vote for the record. And on your agenda, it says item A. It's actually item C. Purchase of wireless access points and network electronics, E-rate. Mr. Loschenscheider.
Okay, thank you again, President Buckaloo. This is a purchase of technology access points through E-rate funding. We receive E-rate funding, which will give us about basically an 82% discount on the items that we're purchasing. Also, we receive state aid funds for technology. We receive about $122,000, and this was built into the budget at the beginning of the year. The E-rate will take this down to about $16,000 net cost, which will come out of the state grant.
Motion is in order.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Madison, seconded by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion?
I had a chance to talk with Mr. Wenzel on the phone last week after receiving this and had him try to explain this to me. We already received money, correct, from the state that can be used for technology.
Yes, we do.
All right. Now, my question is that I know that most of our buildings are already wireless, and my question was the purchase of wireless points at both of the high schools and the middle schools. Not the middle schools, but just the 2 high schools. If we're already wireless.
I don't believe we are at high school. K-8, we use title funds to create wireless, and this is the extension into the high schools.
Okay, so this will give more spots for students to access the internet than is available right now?
Oh, Seth is here. I think Seth could probably answer your question a little bit better than I could.
And this is a part of the discussion that we had. My mind was a little foggy, so you're going to need to refresh me just a little.
And it's technical stuff, so I understand how those kind of conversations go. Yeah, we already have coverage in the most critical areas of both high schools, but this is part of the phase where we want to get the density and the wide coverage throughout the building that we have in the K-8 buildings.
Okay. And please explain what a link
aggregator switch.
Aggregator, okay.
Yeah, the other item in the RFP was switches that connect buildings together. So the switches that connect most buildings, in fact almost all of them in the district, are now 14 years old. They're running along fine, we're doing okay with them, but the original specifications for the larger buildings, so including Franklin, which has a high density of electronics, and Stevenson, that's increasing every day, they were a bigger, more robust unit back then, and conversely, it's aging rapidly now. They're not supported, we can't get warranty or parts for them anymore, and we think they're a bottleneck. Actually, we know they're a bottleneck for performance in the network. So we're asking for aggregator switches to connect those two buildings and hoping for the reimbursement from the E-rate funds.
All right, and I know I asked you this question, and I think I remember the answer, that this equipment we are already familiar with, that we've already had a test run on them to see if they do meet our needs?
Yes, this is the manufacturer that has supplied all of the network electronics in the district, Cisco. And Cisco has acquired, while we were in the middle of this process, Cisco acquired the wireless access point manufacturer called Meraki that we've already used. So yes, it's a very well-known vendor to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Then a motion is in order.
You already have a motion.
I apologize. We need a roll call vote, Mrs. Madison.
And Mrs. Medill. It's okay. I'm the one with the stuffed head. Mrs. Walker is excused. Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
I vote yes, and that makes a 6-0 vote for the record.
Very good.
And that brings us to item D, purchase of laptops, iPads, LearnPads, and mobile computer carts. Larson Shadler?
Okay, thank you again, President Bucklow. This purchase is from Title funds, Title I funds. It was built into the 2014-15 budget and is identified as a priority. The pricing is on state pricing and sole source pricing for the learning pads.
And a motion is in order.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from Dr. Weaver and a support from
Madison.
Mrs. Madison.
I had one quick question. Question?
Yes,
Okay.
Mrs. Hines.
Yes, I was just had a question about like how do you determine like how many computers do you set aside for each school and you purchase? Like how is it the formula?
Seth, you should have stayed up there.
Donna is our title grant coordinator, so she's got insights into that as well.
So, I'm sorry, your question was how do we determine?
Like how many computers each school receives? Like who gets the iPads, the cards? Like how do you guys come up with those numbers?
Actually, schools decide those?
The schools have decisions in their own title budgets, and they decide whether they want LearnPads or iPads or regular computers. This particular purchase goes back to the plus deltas that we looked at, and with this title funding was a district purchase that is allocated equitably to each of the buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments? Mrs. Medill, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker is excused. Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
I vote yes. For the record, it's a 6-0 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 234.15, revised Head Start authorization budget. Dr. Harmel.
Thank you. We visited this a few times together, and
Yes, we
we're
have.
visiting it one more time. So Wayne County Head Start informed the district that the Office of Head Start rejected the reauthorization that was approved at our special meeting we held. There was additional clarity needed in the reauthorization process regarding our move to half and full-time day slots and the way that aligns with the budget. So we had to revise the budget for their approval with the new grant total listed and then the new in-kind listed in the memo that you received. So in order to have them have all the pieces line up, we need one approval again.
I will move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion from Mrs. Medill And we need a support.
Support.
Ms. Hines? Discussion? Well, I have one comment. We have done this, and we have tried our darndest to meet the needs of the folks, I believe, at the county. And hopefully we've done it this time to their satisfaction. This is a paperwork change that we're making. There is no change of substance, only of form.
Correct.
And I wanted that to be clear. Other comments or questions? Ms. Madell, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker is excused. Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
I vote yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes, and that would give us a 6-0 vote for the record. And that brings us to item 235.15, resolution, state road ballot proposal. Dr. Harmel.
Yes, thank you. On May 5th, 2015, voters in Michigan will be asked to consider the state's road ballot proposal. The proposal is designed to raise additional revenue primarily to fix roads through an increase in the state sales tax. However, the school aid fund is affected by any change in the school, or in the sales tax rather. And when that proposal was being designed, consideration for the implications to the school aid fund was considered. Specifically, if passed by the voters, the proposal would generate $300 million annually in additional funds for K-12 schools and community colleges. In addition, it would prevent universities and private colleges from having access to the school aid fund. There are other details, fine details in the proposal that relate to the wholesale tax and things like that. But primarily, given the need to invest in our students through school funding that allows us to provide appropriate programs, I would recommend the board consider the attached resolution in support of Proposal 1.
Thank you. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Ms. Hines, and a second?
Second. I'll second.
Okay, and the...
Mrs. Madison?
Mrs. Madison, okay. Is there any discussion or comment on this proposal?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
I've taken the opportunity to study the proposal from as late as today, and obviously as the Board of Education, I'm going to be very supportive of this motion, both as an individual and a board member, because I think there are things within this proposal, even though it's a merit proposal, that will guarantee education funding, such as not rating the school aid fund for the community college, which I also support, but not rating it the fund for raising the deficit in the general fund. We need to have some stability in this school district financing of our state. And this school district, being as large as it is, needs to know exactly what kinds of money we're going to have for the upcoming year, so this board and this superintendent and this administration can make the kinds of financial decisions necessary. So I'm not going to get into any particulars. I know I'm just simply going to say this: if you think that we need help in our schools, this financial proposal will give help to our schools to the tune of $300 million more a year and guarantee certain funding. And for that reason, I'm going to support this proposal. I'm going to vote for it, and I would I urge the board to do the same. And I think we will, because I think the board members up here understand those kinds of things. And so that's the reason that I'm going to vote for this, and I want to put it on a public record for the benefit of the public here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mrs. Padel.
One of the things that Dr. Weaver, Mr. Buckaloo, Mrs. Hines, and Dr. Harmala and myself got a chance to do was to go to a legislative conference. And this was one of the topics that they did discuss, and a lot of going back and forth between the state legislature has a chance to fix it on their own, there's monies available, versus let's put it out to the voters. And the comment was finally made by somebody who said they had a chance to fix it and they couldn't. So now it's up to the voters to fix the problem. And We know how interesting our roads are in Michigan. Once the ground starts to thaw out, it will get even more interesting as it gets warmer and the permafrost that's underneath there starts defrosting also. So we have an opportunity to spend a lot of money on our front end alignments and tires, but we also have a great opportunity to generate more money to go into the school aid fund, which doesn't have a lot of opportunities to grow itself without some kind of intervention. So I think at this point it might not be the best piece of legislation out there, but it's what's available to us, and we want to look at it seriously for consideration. So I wholeheartedly will support this.
And I had one concern as well. When we were in Lansing, they were telling us that there's no backup plan. So that's something to really consider as well.
And I would follow up on that. There is no Plan B. It's been suggested that the state can make cuts. We have something like a $10 billion budget in the state, and half of that is already earmarked for salaries and what have you and can't be cut. So they want to cut the remaining $5 billion by 20% in order to get the $1 million that they need for roads. It just isn't going to happen. That's too big a cut. It would be much too painful. We have a majority party in Lansing, and many of those people have taken a pledge for no new taxes. Had they wanted to come up with the funding for roads, it would have gone against their principles. And so the bill that we have in front of us now is that compromise. It's out here for the public to vote on. And it's the best that the majority party could get for us. And again, it's a compromise. If you want to vote against this bill, I can tell you you'll have no trouble finding a reason to vote no. There are 10 pieces of legislation that kick in if a yes vote comes on May 5th. You might want to pick any one or all of those as a reason to vote no. But it's a compromise. I'd ask you not to look at a reason to vote no, but for a reason to vote yes. In any compromise, there are going to be things that you don't like. And this bill certainly has those. It may be this for you, and it may be something else for the person sitting next to you. But we can't continue to drive on our roads now. 38% of our roads, our major trunk lines, are in bad shape. And each year they get worse. And not only do they get worse, but the rate of deterioration is growing each year. So if we don't do something about it and do something about it soon, we're going to reach a point, a tipping point, where our roads can't be fixed. So anyway, like my colleagues here on the board, I'm urging a vote of yes. But I guess we need a...
Well, let me read the resolution, and then we'll vote.
I'm sorry.
No, I didn't have anything to say. Quite honestly, I was going to save my comments for board recommendations, and maybe it's an appropriate time now that I would just like to ask my fellow board members to consider, is this the appropriate time in our meeting to be expressing our views and our opinions, and maybe most importantly, sticking to the agenda and keeping in mind that as we go through our meeting and each item, we don't allow our community to speak up after each agenda item, but most importantly, maybe sticking to our agenda and saving for the appropriate time for us to speak.
Thank you. Right. Mrs. Medell, would you do a roll call vote? Oh, I'm sorry, read the motion.
Resolution in support of the state's road ballot proposal. Whereas Michigan public schools continue to face difficult economic and budget challenges, and whereas these challenges are the result of funding shortfalls that directly impact schools and the community, and whereas the Michigan legislature has placed before voters Proposal 1 on May 5th, 2015 ballot that would protect funding for classrooms and guarantee funding for safer roads and bridges. Therefore, be it resolved, the Wayne-Westland Community School Board of Education supports Proposal 1 on the May 5th, 2015 ballot because we believe in restoring funds to our classrooms and maintaining our roads for everyone's safety. Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker is excused. Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Mattel votes yes, and Mr. Buckaloo?
I do vote yes, and let the record reflect a 6-0 vote in favor of the resolution. Item 236.15, report on the superintendent's evaluation and contract extension. Mrs. Madell?
One of the things that we have discussed at a couple of our meetings is looking at our superintendent's contract and evaluation. And knowing that Dr. Harmala is brand new in the job and has not had a complete year underneath her belt, one of the things that I suggested that we give a serious look at is that we look at evaluations beginning in January and ending in December. This would also be convenient for new trustees coming on board after elections, that they would have a chance to start right at the very beginning of January when the evaluation would start, and would have the whole complete year to have behind them before they sat down to an evaluation meeting with the board and the superintendent. Knowing that our practices were based on old procedures by the state and by old procedures of other previous contracts, it was an appropriate time to stop and look at this. Now, knowing that Dr. Harmala has not been here for a whole year, as I said, we need to take a look at this as a board, and we need to decide how we are going to proceed with this. As it stands right now, the evaluation includes the state assessment data, student growth data as a significant factor. As you heard during the teacher evaluation presentation, our state assessment has also changed this year. Instead of being offered in the fall, as it has, oh gosh, for about the last 15, 20 years now, it is now moved to May. And since the state has changed from the MEEP to the MyStep, which is a completely different test, which means you do not have a comparison from one year to the next. You're basically not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing unlike objects that have changed the evaluation administration again from fall to spring. Our winter assessments have been completed. We have been using the NWEA, which is administered to the students 3 times a year, in the fall, in the winter, in the spring, and our winter assessments have been completed, and the data is available to use for the evaluation process. Unfortunately, with the NWEA assessment timelines, would not allow her evaluation to be completed any earlier this year than what we have been looking at in the past, which is having our meeting before April 1st to determine the evaluation of our superintendent. So, given this information, I have a recommendation for the board, and it's something for you to consider, or if we have a different path that we would like to take it coming out of this meeting that we can look at. But whatever we do, we need to do something before April 1st. At the Board of Education meeting, March 16th, 2015, the board taken official action to maintain the current 3-year contract until the evaluation process is completed. The Board of Education, the board and the superintendent complete the evaluation process prior to April 20th, 2015, Board of Education meeting. At the April meeting, given the evaluation process has been completed, the board could again address the matter, make a determination as to 1-year extension of the current contract. Additionally, if the board completes the evaluation process and prefers to maintain the current 3-year contract without extension, no additional action will be taken by April meeting.
Mr. President, I have a motion. I'd like to move that the board maintain the current 3-year contract until the evaluation process is completed. If I get a second.
That's a second.
Okay. And that's simply a motion to maintain the status quo until this board has a chance to overcome those kinds of things that are stated that we had no control over, the testing changing, the timing, et cetera. That's all this is. It allows us to go through the process in the present to make the kind of, have the kind of meetings necessary and work with this board and the superintendent to do what's necessary to meet the guidelines that we have no control over. That's the purpose of my motion.
We have a motion, and we have a second.
Yes.
Ms. Hines?
Discussion.
Discussion?
Yes. I'm not opposed to the motion. My concern is that that we need to look at what the law has to say, the laws has to say concerning this issue, whether it's important for us to have an evaluation right now, even though it's a short period of time, to stay within state law.
Kelly, do you have anything that you could offer about the state law?
I can respond.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to go to the employee to ask.
And Kelly
There's
can
my-
too, but we have to put an evaluation for every one of our employees who deal with instructional matters into the state system by June 30. So regardless of when a person was hired, we have to have something in what's called the rep by June 30 of each year. So we'll have to put something in there. So we have to have the process completed by then for evaluation purposes. So, Kelly, do you want to add anything?
No, that's the final deadline would be June 30th, and that's the only thing that it speaks to.
To the chair, to Dr. Weaver, that this motion is simply a procedural one to get things, to allow the president to do what he has to do to, in your solve,
Yes.
to make that happen within the confines of the law and the testing program.
Mm-hmm.
And again, our situation is a bit like the guy that's got the cart in front of the horse. We need to get things worked out. Dr. Harmel and I have talked about this, and we've agreed that the policy committee should take a look at the evaluation instrument at their next meeting later this month and make a recommendation. And this evaluation instrument has to be to the liking of the employee and also to the board. And once that's done, we should have a closed meeting at your discretion to discuss an evaluation. I believe that it would be appropriate if you would do a self-evaluation and let us see that, and also do our own evaluation prior to that meeting, and so that we'll have some basis for discussion. And also, I would hope that the policy committee can order things for the following year so that we aren't in this position again. Once again, this is a technical thing, and I don't want anyone to think that there's any sense of dissatisfaction on the part of anyone on this board, and I think I can speak for the board on this point, with our superintendent. I think we're most pleased with the way things are going. This, again, is, as someone said earlier, a procedural matter.
I'll just add one other piece that, along with the components of the evaluation you named, it is a requirement that the superintendent also include the student growth factors that all of our teachers have to use as well. So we have a process for that. So that will be included in what the policy committee will review on Monday.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else have a comment? We have a motion. Do you have a copy of that? No. Would you repeat your motion, please, sir?
Yes, I would. High school shorthand class.
I took it right off of, moved to maintain the current 3-year contract until the evaluation process is completed, the second sentence in what you just read.
Okay.
All right.
And so we have a motion and we have a second, and we need a roll call vote. Mrs. Madell?
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Madison?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker is excused. Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
I vote yes. And Mr. Buckaloo?
I vote yes, and let the record reflect a 6-0 vote. And that brings us to item 23715, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Harmel.
Thank you, President Buckaloo. This evening, we shared some important student and staff-related work earlier in the meeting, and I'd like to certainly thank our Wayne Memorial High School students for their anti-bullying work, and I'd like to thank our John Glenn High School students for their work toward anti-bullying and their public speaking skills and willingness to share with all of us in our broader community. The students did not point out, but I don't know if you noticed in the back of the room the wonderful posters that they are using and hanging around the school to help promote their message. I know we all appreciate our students and the level of seriousness they take in making sure great futures really do start right here. They are an example of building a strong community and also great futures that they will bring leadership in other areas. I'd also like to thank all of our staff who worked together to make the revisions to the teacher evaluation model. It certainly was nice to watch you share your work, lots of smiles on your faces, and I appreciate the collaboration and, again, the demonstration of working together toward a common goal and also meeting the requirements of our teacher evaluation legislation. So I couldn't be more proud and thank all of you for your work. The Superintendent Steering Committee met for the first time on March 5th. Of this year. I'd like to thank all the staff. We have students, parents, and community members participating in that steering committee. We spent some time getting to know each other, developing an understanding of our charge, and we took a few minutes to look at the plus delta data that was gathered from July up until now across the district. While the committee is not a decision-making body, they will certainly provide invaluable insights and feedback as we continue to progress toward meeting our mission and vision as a district. So I'd like to thank all of them and look forward to our next meeting. And then finally, a recent executive order by Governor Snyder moved the School Reform Office from the Michigan Department of Education to the Department of Technology Management and Budget. The order takes effect in mid-May, and the School Reform Office works with and monitors the lowest performing schools within Michigan. Until we hear more, the impact for local districts is not clear. Certainly this is something that I will stay attuned to and bring information to the board as well as all of our staff as we work to see what this change means for all of us. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 238.15, Board of Education Committee reports. Mrs. Madison, you have a policy committee report?
Yes, the policy committee meeting met on February 12th, and the minutes are that in attendance was the superintendent, Dr. Michelle Harmala, trustees Melody Hines, Sally Madison, and Carol Medell. We had our attorney Kevin Sutton there, and community members were Ron Madison, Bill Medell, and our recording secretary Jan Teague. The meeting began at 6:30 p.m. Dr. Harmala stated that she met with Kevin Sutton, our legal counsel, and they reviewed the 8,000, 7,000, 3,000, and 4,000 policy series, and noted that we are only reviewing Section 8,000 students this evening. She asked that the committee also review the process and presentation of the materials for this first section to see if any quote-unquote tweaks need to be made before we move forward with other sections. Kevin Sutton provided the committee with a summary of all overall processes as how it got started and where we want to end up. He highlighted the following key points that should be adhered to: the difference between starting over and making over, streamlining, distinguishing between policies and guidelines, and focusing on the district's specific interest while meeting the needs of the board, staff, and administration. Also of importance are removing restatements, removing higher standards than needed, and including everything required under the law, and distinguishing between policies and administrative guidelines. Mr. Sutton distributed a tab spiral notebook and colored matrix for the 8,000 series to each committee member. The spiral notebook contained the draft policies and administrative guidelines, and the matrix included an overview of the recommended changes of the old policy to recommended policy. He explained that Luskin Albertson's policy template was provided at the first meeting with Dr. Harmala, where they reviewed the Wayne-Westland's current policies and compared them to Luskin Albertson's template policies. Changes to policies were made where necessary. Policies that would become administrative guidelines were marked as such, and combined language of policies was incorporated where necessary and appropriate, and policies that were repetitious or outdated were recommended for omission. Mr. Sutton reviewed the overall matrix of the 8,000 policy series with the committee members and noted the recommended actions taken for each policy. At the end of the meeting, the committee found the review process efficient and effective and made the recommendation to take the 8,000 series to the full board for approval. Dr. Harmala suggested that as the board finalizes and approves the policy sections, that they be put in the district's website. The committee members agreed with this action. Dr. Harmala noted that the Finance Committee will review the 3,000 and 4,000 policy series at the March 30th, 2015 committee meeting as suggested by the Policy Committee. The next steps are to set up another Policy Committee meeting date, to review the 7,000 series, and to set up a special board meeting date after the Finance Committee meets to review the recommendations for the approval of the 8,000 series. The committee members agreed that going forth, they would just need the front portion of the notebook, which incorporated the policies and a matrix. Excuse me. Trustee Medell will chair the next meeting. The meeting was adjourned at 7:55 p.m., respectively submitted by Jan T.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 239.15, citizen comments, non-agenda items, general. Yes, ma'am. Would you go to the podium, please? State your name and
Board and public, my name is Julie Leskowitz. I'm one of your neighbors in Romulus. I come here not on an adversarial note, but on behalf of my daughter, who is a Walker Winter parent. As a former school board member, I totally understand the legal constraints that you are under regarding many, many items. And she just had a very strong concern about an email that she received at about 4 o'clock Friday afternoon regarding a personnel matter, a possible personnel matter that was covered by a local news station. And she just has a few procedural questions. If indeed this incident really was reported 3 weeks ago, why did it take 3 weeks for parents to be informed that there was a possible problem? And we are not at all, we are hoping that everything is just fine and that this is a grave mistake. But we're just concerned about the procedure that is used when this type of thing happens. Like I say, as a former board member, I understand that you can't say anything, but we had a very, very strong procedure in place for any kind of thing like this, because unfortunately we had several while I was on the board. We're also concerned about who was notified and when. Just because this supposed time lag, and again, I understand that the media can not always be the most truthful and everything, but it is just something that my daughter would like to see addressed. On another note, though, because I always like to leave on a positive note, I met your board president. My granddaughter's in the TAG program at Walker Winter. We could not be more pleased with the school and the staff and the program, having had a daughter who graduated valedictorian of her class and was, quite honestly, other than when she was dual enrolling, never motivated in school. The fact that you are offering this program, my daughter moved to this district, even though she could have been under school choice, moved here to make sure that her daughter could go and made sure she was in the Walker Winter attendance area. And last but not least, you lucky dogs, you got Rebecca Peck. Rebecca literally ran the Romulus School District when, due to a myriad of reasons, we lost all of our central office administration. She only worked 48-hour days for us, but so you're very lucky to have her. Thank you very much.
And as you know, we're not going to respond to your comments, but if you would leave your name and a telephone number with Mrs. Medell at the end of the meeting, we will see that you are contacted and a conversation will take place.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry.
My name is Tiffany Hamoud. I had similar questions. Obviously, they're not going to be answered. But I do have a daughter that attends Roosevelt McGrath, and I do have concerns. So I will leave my name and number.
Right,
Thank you.
and I would ask you to leave a phone number with us as well. And perhaps it's not out of line for me to say that I have a grandson at Walker Winter, and makes me old, but I'm very, very pleased with the program as well, and I share that with you. Are there any other comments this evening? Okay. That brings us to item 240.15, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Mrs. Madell.
As usual, it wouldn't be the monthly regular meeting of the school board if I wasn't here to remind you about the Head Start financial report that is in front of you. Please take a look, and if you have any questions, there are some names at the bottom of the sheet that you can contact and ask questions, because I do not always understand every nuance of the financial statement that goes along with that program. Got a little bit of a jab here this evening from my fellow board members, knowing that I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, that I haven't had a chance to go out to a lot of events in the school district, and I was really upset. My husband will verify that I was really upset that I could not and had to back out of a lot of commitments because of this horrible virus that I ended up with. But before I got sick, I had a chance to go to the ROTC competition that Wayne High's ROTC group participated in River Rouge, and by the way, they took first place. They have an excellent program, and the kids did a great job. And I ended up going to another meeting in the afternoon to see one of our ROTC kids in attendance with his parents and Mr. Weber to find out that he was the recipient of a prize money from the DAR, for a composition that he had written and was selected as one of their winners. So again, another proud moment for our school district. This is Reading Month, so today I got a chance to go over to Edison and read, and I know quite a few of you who are available during school hours have been asked to participate in Reading Month. There are a lot of activities going on this month, from book and blanket flashlight nights to literacy nights at some of our upper L and middle school buildings that I hope you get a chance to go to, because I'm always astounded at what our students present to us. I know the high school has parent-teacher conferences going on this week, so you can always swing by the high school to visit your students' teachers. And also Career Tech has their conferences this week. And talking about making our school district proud, I had a chance on Saturday, probably the first day I was out of sweatpants for 2 weeks, to go down to the Charles H. Wright African American Museum for the annual spelling bee, where we always have 2 participants in that spelling bee. And quite often our kids do really well, and sometimes they are really frustrated. And I know that the adults sitting in the audience are quite surprised at the students' capabilities, and our 2 students, Connor and Aaron, were able to come in 2nd and 3rd place. I am just so proud of them. And they will be here probably next month receiving a certificate from our school board for their excellent achievement. It was extremely difficult competition, and again, as Mr. Boffman and I have found in the past when he's been down there, food words again. We all ended up going out of there starving, going, where is the local restaurant? Because again, that's the kind of words that were coming out every once in a while. So next month when our 2 students, make sure that you tell them that you don't always have to win this competition. Just making it that far is an honor. I want to remind, coming up for us, we have the Zebra Safari. For those of you who have not ever attended this is their silent auction, live auction that they conduct, and that will be held on April 17th at 6 o'clock and they usually have it at the Wayne Rec Center, and you can get tickets through the high school, through Wayne Memorial High School, and it's always a fun time. There's always food there from Chef Tony, and you know, the things that they are auctioning off, whether it's silent or live, are always unique gifts. Don't forget, Kindergarten Roundup is coming up on April 24th, and that will be at 1:30 in the afternoon, which is a little bit of a change for us. Usually it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So they've moved it to 1:30 in the afternoon. So hopefully if you know of a kindergartner that lives down the street from you or somebody who's, you know, moved into our district, please tell them about it. And the last thing I have to offer is a lot of congratulations to our students who have participated in winter sports. It is that time of the year for students to start making their commitments, if they are seniors, as to which college they are going to go to, whether they play on a sports team or whether they're in our academic programs or career tech. And they are now deciding where they want to go. And I know several of our students have already signed intent letters to go off to Michigan universities instead of leaving our state, which is always great for us. And also congratulations go out to the Wayne High bowling team for coming in first in the state. That is unbelievable because, believe it or not, bowling still has a lot of competition going for it also. Also to congratulate one of our teachers for being recognized by, is it, not Maisel, it's McCall. I always say it, Technology User Educator Award. And that went to Jillian Johnson. And she was named as a runner-up. And it's always nice to see our staff members being recognized for what they bring to our students. So with that said, and my voice going quickly, thank you.
Dr. Weaver.
Yes, thank you, President Buckaloo. I just have a couple of comments tonight. I wrote this down, so, and I left my glasses at home, and my handwriting is terrible, so bear with me. An article in the Detroit Free Press last Friday by Lori Higgins was titled, "State Ready to Act on Worst Schools." And what will it mean to the schools? According to the article, that their improvement plans will be analyzed to see if they're working, and if not, other options will be considered, which includes closing schools or turning public schools into charter schools, replacing principals and or their staff, removing schools from their districts and placing them in a state reform district. I am incensed by this article and the proposals that are being made. As Dr. Harmala said a few moments ago, we're not sure where this will land, but when you have the governor of our state taking over taking over the reform office, we're just not sure where all of this is going to land, but certainly the part that I'm incensed most about is turning public schools into charter schools. Charter schools have never been held to the standards that public schools are held to, and I'm just I've used the word a couple of times, but I'm just incensed by that, and plan to make my feelings known, and also to have our district on a 5-year step freeze while $250 million is taken out of the school aid budget is unconscionable. I know the governor doesn't even know my name, but I'm calling him out tonight on these things. I agree that there are failing schools, and I agree that they need to be helped, but also believe that our new teaching staff shouldn't have to be starting on a salary that makes them eligible for bridge cards. Or our veteran teachers and staff who work tirelessly for our district and are not fairly compensated. I just think that our governor and lawmakers in Lansing instead of trying to get their names on laws, that they would take a chance and take time to really see what's happening in public education and how they're hurting the districts in Michigan with their constant shifting of laws. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Madison.
I wasn't going to say much tonight, and I, as Dr. Weaver has done, kind of jotted down a few notes. So I've got a little bit of scribble that's last minute here that I'll put into the best words. It's more from my heart than trying to stick to a script. And I want to acknowledge and appreciate and say thank you to those who've got up and spoken, have concerns and asked questions. And I don't want you to walk away tonight feeling nobody heard you and nobody responded. I remember a time when I stood up at that podium as a community member and having questions and that feeling of being on the outside and the not knowing. And the best answer that I can give you tonight, rather than no answer at all, and that I want to send out to even everyone who's not here, that I please hope that you will consider to take back with you, is sometimes we have to allow and trust the appropriate authorities the opportunity to act and respond and to follow through the processes that are set in place. Sometimes we don't know those processes, and sometimes it's for great reason to protect ourselves and to protect others of why we don't know the process, but we have to trust that a process is there and being implemented. And most importantly, give the opportunity for that to happen. And I'd just like to ask everyone to kind of challenge themselves on what they consider to be quote-unquote news. What is newsworthy? What do we need to know and why? And what should we warrant and pay attention to, whether it's in a newspaper, through a TV, or somebody's words saying, believe me, or this is the story or the headline of the night. And keep in mind, when you're asking yourself, what is news? Put yourself on both sides of that story and that headline being told. Put yourself on the side of the one who is the accuser and the one who is accused, and their family, their friends, their loved ones, or even if it was yourself, and what kind of privacy you would want in that time for yourself and your family and friends. And keep in mind that there are processes that are implemented as best as humanly possible to protect everyone to the best of the abilities possible. And we can't make a perfect world, but we sure are. We all are trying. But just keep in mind that this affects many people regardless of an outcome, and that it's important to be mindful before we continue to spread the news, who all it impacts, and kind of think first about how we would want it handled. Also, I wanted to point out with that kind of coincides with, the bullying ends with me, kind of goes on both aspects about that, and being mindful of what we say and what we feel and what we grab on to a belief. And if that story is being told is in fact a story or if it is true. And that we all, as adults, need to be just accountable to that. And it doesn't just happen with children. It goes on through all of our lives. And I think we've got a lot of great examples right behind us of boards about making sure that we don't continuing the bullying in different facets, regardless of what we are hearing. And I was very glad to hear, it was one of my things on my note, that the boards are being utilized. And we have some fantastic artwork there behind us that is not just artwork, but a very impacting statement for all of us to keep in mind. And something else that I heard quite often tonight was collaboration. And I wanted to mention in the aspects of collaboration that I have heard being a part of this community for many years with my children growing up through here, of teachers wanting to be collaborative and finding opportunities to be as collaborative as possible. And not just teachers, every aspect of our faculty and staff. And it was nice to see that displayed here tonight and the process moving forward with the collaboration happening. And I want to thank you, Kelly, for part of that. And it was nice to be able to see that presentation tonight. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Madison. Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the two students here tonight that led us in the pledge, and the people and staff members in the bullying presentation, which I enjoyed. And I'm not going to reiterate all the comments. I concur with those, and I certainly concur with my colleague and Vice President Dr. Weaver about the funding and what's taking place in funding for our schools. But then I want to get down to congratulating some other folks, the John Glenn High School basketball team. But since I had 3 boys that wrestled here in the district, for the first time ever, we had a freshman, Mike Mars, who was the state champion. That's unbelievable since I have a grandson who is now on scholarship at Eastern in wrestling, was a state champion only as a senior. So, being a freshman state champion is, and I also want to congratulate Chase Spaniels. We forget, sometimes we don't realize what kind of programs we have in this district. We have a tremendous wrestling program. I guess I'm a little prejudiced because my boys started out in Stevenson through high school and John Glenn, and so I followed the program with my son, who was a coach, both of them. 2 out of 3. So I want to congratulate them and let them know that beyond all the other good things we've heard here tonight that I haven't had a chance to experience personally, but I do follow that. And lastly, I want to say this. If I were the Red Wings, I'd be careful Friday night, because I'll tell you what, we have a tough superintendent, and I wouldn't get in their way. I'll tell you what, she's so tough that I wouldn't get in their way, and she's going to be a part of that team that Mayor Wild recruited, and she accepted. So I'm hoping I can get over there to watch it, but I just want to say to them, beware, stay out of the way. She could hurt you. In the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Ms. Hines.
Hi, I'd like to say I was really excited to go to Lansing for my first legislative aid, and I learned a lot about the different laws, and I was also able to attend the Wayne County RESA meeting the other night. I learned a lot about some more legislative laws. They have like this little cheat sheet where they tell us different laws to look out for and different people to contact, so that was pretty exciting, especially being a new board member, trying to get the ropes of that. I was able to attend a community impact award meeting that they had with the students with the Inkster Literacy Family Movement. And what they do is that they help children with early literacy. They provide them like free books. They have different events that go on. And at David Hicks on Wednesday, March the 18th, they're having a reading night with the Inkster Literacy Group. And it's from 5 to 7. And I plan on attending that. And I got invited to go to the National Youth Leadership Council Roundtable, and that's going to be at Wayne State University on Thursday. So it's going to be a lot of different school districts, a lot of different youth. They're going to discuss different issues that are going on with them. And I was given information also by Mayor Hampton. He has like a scholarship foundation for seniors that's in Wayne Memorial, John Glenn, that are Inkster residents. And the information to get that scholarship information is Mayor, M-A-Y-O-R, Hampton, H-A-M-P-T-O-N, Youth Foundation, WEEBLY.com. So if anyone would like some information about scholarship programs for their seniors in John Glenn or Wayne Memorial who reside in Inkster, that would be some good information for them. Okay. And that's it so far.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. That brings it to me. I would like to thank you and you for your comments tonight. Remind you again, please leave your phone number and name, and someone will get back with you. This is not something we're not aware of. This is not something that will be swept under the rug. It will be investigated. It is being investigated internally and by the Wayne Police, and there will be a resolution. And there's, whether it's a positive or a I don't know how to say it. It's going to be an honest evaluation. So with that said, I pretty much said all I should have said, and when I shouldn't have said it on roads, but you get, I think, what I feel about Proposition 1. Much of what I wanted to say has already been taken. The Wayne High bowling team is state champion. A freshman won the wrestling, and by the way, you're not out of line by stressing the importance of wrestling. It is clearly the most important sport in the world.
I happen to know that you coach
here. And you're right about the hockey game, too. I have my tickets, and I'm getting there at 5:30 so I can get a seat down on the glass and bang on the glass. And it looks like it's going to be quite an event. I would share with Dr. Weaver his comments on the governor's decision to take over our priority and focus schools. It, to me, doesn't make sense to take the decision out of the hands of the professionals and put it into the hands of the non-professionals. It doesn't make any sense to me to take a complex problem like poverty and its impact on education and relegate it to a simple, well, we'll fix it, because it doesn't happen. It just simply doesn't happen that easily. It takes a long, concerted effort, and I would remind anyone who looks at schools that the personnel of those schools, that is the student population of those schools, changes on a regular basis. And it's very difficult to get a handle on what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, to bring these students along. It's not that we're not trying. It's just not a simple process. And again, I don't understand the thinking of the folks in Lansing. But in any event, those are my comments, and I think that brings us to an end. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming this evening.